So I asked podcast followers whether or not you have experienced anxiety as part of perimenopause, and 99% of you said yes. Now, even I was surprised by that. So that's what prompted this podcast episode today, is talking about anxiety and perimenopause. Anxiety in perimenopause can manifest in many, many different ways. It can arise in women who've never experienced any anxiety before, or it can manifest in a different way to how old anxiety would have manifested. It can come about in the day and the nighttime, just in the day, just in the nighttime, and it can be both a physical feelings or anxious thoughts, or both together. The physical feelings that you get with anxiety can be that horrible kind of butterfly tightness in your stomach, in your chest, rising anxiety that kind of starts in your middle and then comes up through your chest and then up into your throat. It can feel like a kind of closure of things around you. It can feel like just pure panic. It can be associated with feeling very hot and sweaty. And you can get this in the day, or you can also get a type in the night, which kind of wakes you from your sleep. So you get like that same feeling, but it whooshes up through your body and wakes you up with a start. And then you feel very, very awake and very panicked. You can get palpitations both in the day and at night that can come out of nowhere, not associated with anything else, just literally that kind of panicky feeling. Or you can get anxious thoughts, and it can be triggered by a specific situation. So we often hear about women who can no longer drive on the motorway, or who no longer want to be a passenger in a car, or who can't stand up in front of a room full of people and deliver a speech, all of which in the past would have been absolutely no problem at all. And this is also, it doesn't have to be constant. It can come and go. You can have good days, good months, bad months. There isn't necessarily a rhyme or reason as to when you would or would not feel it, but it can be very, very debilitating and just a really, really unpleasant symptom. Having said all of that, if you have palpitations, then they really need investigating, so you must discuss that with your doctor. But also the symptom of anxiety can be treated. It can be treated alone, kind of as a standalone, or it can be treated as part of HRT when you're addressing other perimenopause symptoms. Anxiety in perimenopause often comes about because of hormonal changes. So estrogen and progesterone are calming hormones. And if they are going a little bit haywire, or even if they're just dropping, this can trigger kind of neurochemical changes that can cause anxiety. As well as that, women in perimenopause tend to be women in midlife, and there can be all sorts of other stresses that are going along at the same time. So young children, older parents, stressful careers, difficult relationships, and that can all come together in this kind of perfect storm of stressful life plus hormonal chaos. And that's when the wheels can fall off and you start experiencing very kind of debilitating mood symptoms. Women who've had anxiety throughout their lives are more likely to experience anxiety in perimenopause. They're more likely to experience anxiety throughout the rest of their lives. So the best predictor of future anxiety is past anxiety. But equally, it can affect women who've never had anxiety or low mood or any mental health issue in the past at all. It can come out of nowhere. And it's those women where it's particularly it's a real red flag that this is hormonal in underlying cause, because to suddenly develop anxiety or mood symptoms, especially in your late 40s when you've never had them in the past, would be perimenopause until proven otherwise. So the good thing about anxiety as a symptom is that there is a lot that can be done, both medically and also in terms of lifestyle. Lots of lifestyle choices impact on how severe your anxiety symptoms are going to be. So, for example, caffeine can cause a massive anxious reaction. Caffeine causes adrenaline surges. It perpetuates adrenaline staying around. And even a cup of coffee in the morning can last all day and into the night and cause those anxious symptoms literally throughout the day. So it's worth having an eye on how much coffee or caffeine that you're drinking, because bear in mind that caffeine can be disguised. It's not necessarily just in coffee. It can be in certain teas. It can be in diet drinks, fizzy drinks. So it's worth just watching all of that intake. Even spicy food. So some spicy food can make you feel anxious. Things like smoking can make you anxious. And then when you don't get enough sleep, then that can cause symptoms the next day because your brain hasn't been properly rested, especially if you're using sugar or coffee to keep you awake. Alcohol is a real big driver of anxiety. So anxious women tend to reach for alcohol as a kind of calming sedative, but the rebound that you get in the middle of the night or the next day makes anxiety even worse. So it's really important to check how much alcohol you're drinking. And on the opposite side, then exercise can really improve anxiety. So you can run off or exercise off your excess adrenaline sometimes, and it can just make you naturally tired at the end of the day so that you then sleep better. Other lifestyle choices, so making sure that your diet is unrefined, is varied, is nutritious, and not full of ultra high processed foods can really make a difference. And as well as lifestyle changes, there are other things that you can do that don't even involve medication that can help. So there are psychological therapies, things like CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, hypnotherapy, massage, acupuncture, aromatherapy. All sorts of things that are completely non-medical that can improve anxiety symptoms, making different life choices. So if work is incredibly stressful, even just stepping away from that, if you can, maybe just reducing your hours or possibly changing role can make a big difference. And then there's the medical therapies, and so that is typically divided into HRT, so hormone replacement therapy, and non-hormonal therapies. HRT can make a big difference. It really can, but not all women can take HRT. And then there are specific medications that we use for treating anxiety. And beta blockers can be really, really useful. Unless you are asthmatic, there's not really a contraindication to those. And you can use them literally as and when you feel anxious. That's the beauty of them. You can't become dependent on them. You can take them as much or as little as you like within their dosage allowances. And so if you're in an anxious or anxiety-provoking situation, you can take them. And if you're not, then you don't have to. And a lot of women find that just by taking it when you need it, it can break that anxious cycle and really help improve symptoms and quality of life. And the other medications that can be useful are antidepressants. They're not the choice for everybody, and they do require a commitment. And sometimes the side effects can make anxiety worse, but they can be very, very helpful for a lot of women in helping with overcoming anxiety, particularly if it's associated with low mood. The final group of things that you can do there are herbal options, so things like magnesium, even vitamin D, and certain over-the-counter preparations like ashwagandha. There is limited evidence that herbal options can make a difference, and it's always worth speaking to your doctor to see whether anything that you would like to take herbally has any sort of interaction with the medication that you are taking. One of the hormones that you take as part of HRT, progesterone, can help with anxiety. So it can be very calming and sedating, and you take it at night and it can help with sleep. But in some women, it can make anxiety worse. And it's worth knowing that if you're going to start on HRT, that it can have an effect both ways. If you're taking it as a cycle, then so as in you take it 2 weeks on and then 2 weeks off, it can be much easier to identify what effect it has on you by looking to see how much better or worse you are when you take it as opposed to when you don't take it. And bear in mind that your response to progesterone can differ according to how much estrogen you've got on board. So some women, when they first start HRT, when their estrogen levels are still low, find that using progesterone makes them more anxious. But by the time you've re-estrogenized somebody, using progesterone can actually be more calming. So it's not that straightforward. But just to remember that progesterone can also have an impact on anxiety. So I think first steps in anyone with anxiety is what can you do to help yourself? So you look at all of the factors that I've described in terms of your lifestyle, both in terms of what you're eating, drinking, smoking or not smoking, exercising and work and your life stresses. And then if that doesn't have the desired effect and you're not feeling better, I think the next thing for you to do is to speak to your doctor who can help. So I've also got some questions from podcast listeners on anxiety. So I'm just going to run through those now. Does testosterone have an impact on anxiety, or does taking additional testosterone have an impact on anxiety? We don't have the data to prove that at the moment. We know that testosterone can make some women feel good, and it can make some women feel almost a bit kind of overhyped and almost like a bit aggressive, which can then flip over into feelings of anxiety. So it's different for everyone. It depends on dosage. It depends on what your underlying normal levels are. But I would say probably with enough data, it may have an impact because we know it can affect brain function, but we don't have enough data to suggest what the real state of play is at the moment. HRT will help with anxiety that is driven by hormonal change. It won't help with anxiety that's nothing to do with hormones. You can't know for sure whether it's hormones or whether it's something else that's causing it. It's really only by trial and error that we can work out what the best method of treatment is. But what we do know is that women in perimenopause who present with anxiety, the gold standard first line treatment is HRT as opposed to antidepressants. If you're somebody who's had recurrent bouts of anxiety and depression throughout their life, and you've been on and off of antidepressants and antidepressants work, then it's very reasonable to try that. But if they don't then work, then HRT would be the next logical step. So there isn't a particular food that will solve an anxiety symptom, but eating a nutritious, well-balanced, unrefined diet that's high in fiber and is low in refined sugars and refined carbohydrates will definitely help. It makes you feel better. It helps with the gut microbiome, which then has an impact on the gut-brain axis. So doing that, although it's not one specific food, should help with anxiety symptoms. I hope you found this conversation today helpful. If I didn't cover your question or your worry, then please do follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @Dr.Naomi Potter. And there's lots on my Instagram feed that covers this kind of area of perimenopause, menopause, when in fact I talk about everything to do with perimenopause and menopause. And there's also some helpful information on my website, which is menopausecare.co.uk.